You mentioned that your name is Hallie Lorraine, correct?
Yes.
Tell me why they named you.
I don't know where they got it.
Hallie was my grandmother's name.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She married your Uncle Herb, right?
Uh-huh.
My mother said that your mother and your aunts thought well of my grandmother, Hallie.
Oh, yes, I did. She was very, very kind.
Did you ever meet her?
I think I did.
Mm-hmm.
My mother played the piano, and they all sang. They were a loving family that loved to sing.
My grandfather, Herb, sang.
He had a beautiful voice. We grew up singing in the choir at church.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about your mother, Alfhild?
My mother was the piano player, and she would play the piano. We'd gather around, including your grandfather, Uncle Herb, and we would all sing. We had a lot of singing done in the family. Uncle Herb loved to sing and had a beautiful voice.
And what part did Aunt Ellen sing? Was she a soprano?
I don't know. It was a happy family, and it was a big house. And when my father was laid off, they had room to take our family into the house to live there, because I was taken care of. I had food to eat and loving people around me, so I was happy. I think a lot of the family came home to live there when they would have family troubles. Just like my father, he was laid off. He was street commissioner in Mount Jewett, and he was laid off. And they went out and lived at Grandpa's house, and they raised chickens. And they gathered around the piano every night and sang songs. They were a singing family. It was a happy house, and there were always aunts visiting, and we would play outside. It was a nice place to live. Aunt Olga worked as a maid in Bradford, and when she was on vacation, she came back and lived with us.
Did she ever marry?
No.
Or is she younger, number 3?
My mother was the oldest, and my mother married Carl, my father.
Olga, what number was she?
2, I think, and mother was number 1, and Uncle Herb. He was the only one that was sent to college to be educated, and the reason was they couldn't afford to send them all, and they thought the men should be educated, and the women ended up cleaning houses. And the reason was because he was a man and he would have to earn the money for the family. My grandpa was a blacksmith. He shoed horses. I don't remember that building at all. We children just had fun. We didn't pay attention where people were working. He was a busy man taking care of horses, but then the cars became popular, and that business from him just disappeared. Oh, that's Gordy. And Gordy and I were pals. We were always playing together. Oh, he was a nice person. We just have fun playing together. That's Grandpa's house. It was a big house, because he raised a big family. And there were a lot of bedrooms in there. And as the children got married and moved out, but if something happened to us, we would move back to and when my father was laid off, the bedroom that we slept in was big enough to hold the whole family. And he had a brother, Harry.
Wasn't he also a blacksmith?
Yes.
And he lived where?
In a town south of us. My mind isn't clear anymore.
Oh, don't worry about it. That's okay. Because Grandpa had a forge or a blacksmith place.
Yeah.
Where was that?
It was in his barn.
In his barn.
And his grandpa shoed horses.
And
when the cars became popular, he didn't need that job anymore.
Did his brother come and work in the same blacksmith shop? Or
I think he was in the same shop. I was just a kid. I see Elida. She was pretty. They all were handsome people. She was beautiful. But we were grandchildren, and there were a lot of us. And we had fun playing together. They always had a garden, and my mother would can the food. So we always had food on the table.
Carl Peterson, and she married Alma. Do you see Alma?
Carl Peterson was from the town just south of us. He married my mother's sister.
Do you remember anything about her? Alma?
Not especially. But Aunt Elvira,
Oh.
she was an Olander, and she was probably one of the last children born, and she was so pretty.
Elvira, where did she live?
In Kane. And my father worked, they made ice and delivered it to people. And of course, when the people got machines that made ice in the house, Grandpa was out of work. My father was out of work. He built a chimney in Grandpa's house. Has his initials on it. He could lay brick.
Do you remember Uncle Martin?
Oh, sure.
He likes you. He talks about you.
I guess he came out and visited us occasionally. But there were always relatives at the house.
Do you remember Grandpa's 90th birthday?
Not especially. Oh, that was our wedding day.
About it.
My husband and I are standing there beside the table, and Hallie, because I was named for her. And this was taken at the church. And the reception was at our church. That was a happy day. Well, you can see all of us were smiling. Well, this is Aunt Hallie.
Right.
She was one of the persons who poured, because my name is Hallie Lorraine. And she helped pour. This was taken at Christmas time. And we were at the house where I was living. Here's the Olanders.
Do you recognize Uncle George?
Uncle George was married to Aunt Ellen. Marilyn was a beautiful person. She was so handsome. She could have been a movie star. All our aunts were really nice, happy people, and we enjoyed being with them. And they were good cooks. We ate what was served. We never ever were allowed to complain about the food, but the food was delicious.
Did you always clean your plate?
I think we did, because we washed the dishes. They didn't have an electric dishwasher, and the plates didn't have food left on them. Have you seen Grandpa's house?
Was there a swing on the porch?
Oh, yes. There was a swing just around the corner on the porch. It wasn't on the very front, it was at the side. Yeah, anybody could sit there. It was just a happy place to sit and swing. There's Grandpa and Uncle Herb, and I don't know who the little boy is, but...
That's me.
Oh, that was you. Is that Mary Jane? She was so pretty.
She was your cousin. Wouldn't she be your cousin?
Yeah. Oh, they were sitting on the porch then. Yeah, because Grandpa had been a shoemaker. He was crippled. He would lean the cows or the horses against his body and then shoe them. But that was hard on his body because they were big animals.
What about his brother? What about his?
Eric. He was a little small, and he also helped shoe horses. He wasn't as strong as Grandpa, so he would shoe horses that weren't as heavy to handle. They worked hard. They didn't have automatic machinery to do things for them. It was hand labor, heavy labor.
What did Grandpa do after the blacksmith shop closed?
He was out of work. I remember him coming to our house and eating supper with us because he really was unemployed. But then we didn't have a car, so he had to walk home. And that was quite a distance because a lot of people didn't have cars. It was Depression.
You see Grandpa in the middle?
Yeah, and my mother's there, and Aunt Olga's there, and Aunt Elma, and Aunt Ellen. I can still see this cake, and they sent part of it to Sweden so they could see what we had to celebrate Grandpa's birthday. Remember them cutting the cake. Grandpa's ready to cut it there, but they sent some to Sweden so that the Swedish people could see what a fancy cake we had. But they were relatives who lived in Sweden yet. Look at all the silverware and the dishes. They didn't have a dishwasher. But Grandpa really looks happy.
Did any of the Swedish family come to America and visit?
Yeah, they'd come and they'd work. They'd work as housemaids. And then they'd stay and earn some money and then go back to Sweden to their families again.
Relatives of Grandpa and Grandma?
Yeah.
Particular ones that you met?
No.
Do you remember your grandmother at all?
No, and I should.
She had a lot of children.
Yes, she did.
That was his 90th birthday.
But Grandpa was so happy.
Who's the woman on the ground?
The one sitting crossing her legs might have been my sister. She would be the type to do that.
Ward Olander? Herb's son?
Yeah. I know who he was, but I don't recognize him here.
And the girl on the ground?
That might be my sister.
Grandpa came over on. That's the boat when he came from Sweden.
It is. Yeah, he was born in Sweden.
And Grandma? Where was she born?
I don't know. She just was Grandma. She was a good grandma. We'd get together for holidays and all eat in the dining room using special dishes, and it was a grand way to grow up.
What did your mother do?
She was a seamstress. She made our clothes. We were beautifully dressed.
When was the last time Uncle Martin visited you in New Jersey?
I don't remember. He must have.
You remember his wife, Bunny?
Oh, sure. And Mary Jane was our cousin. That's your mother, wasn't it?
She was married young? What?
She was young to be married. And we were going to night school and learning an occupation. I was a bookkeeper. I loved working with figures in Mount Jewett.
But did you go to Mary Jean's wedding?
No, but I remember when the day she was married, because she seemed so young. She was only 16, wasn't she?
Well, she graduated early. Do you remember who Mary Jean married?
McCoskell, and that's your name. Remember Uncle Herb thinking she was really too young to get married. My husband was transferred. He worked for Pittsburgh Plate Glass to Indiana. So we lived in Indiana for a while, not far from Indianapolis. I should have kept a diary. My father did, but I didn't.